Hey TSS fam, welcome back to another Sculpt and Spill. Sif and I just sculpted.
Oh my God.
We just sculpted our tush off.
It was spicy.
We did a 15-minute full body. If you haven't done it yet, go and do it. But Sif needs no introduction, but I will introduce her anyway. Siffat Haider is the founder of Aray. If you have not heard of Aray, it is I think kind of like a viral product at this point.
Oh, thank you.
Tell me a little bit about your company and how you got started.
So we create 100% natural targeted supplements that work in under an hour.
Wow.
We wanted people to feel the impact of it right away.
Yeah.
And over time, our focus has been digestive health, but our initial thing was that we would just create products that people needed. But I think for us, we're really close to our customers and our community. And so as we started to hear the number of things that people needed help with when it came to digestion, that's what we decided to solve for.
Yeah. So your first product was
it was bloat and calm, actually both together.
Oh, okay.
Because, you know, when it comes to digestive health and anxiety, the two are like an infinity loop. You know, like when you're bloated, you think about the mental real estate that occupies. You're just like,
when you're uncomfortable and any digestion, like
it just takes up so much mental real estate. And then the other way around as well, when we're dealing with anxiety, our body's in like fight or flight. And so digestion is like the first thing to go. And so we tend to get really bloated or have like, I don't know, like stomach discomfort when we're going through periods of high stress as well. So those were the first two products that we came up with. And then obviously, as we started to hear what our community needed, we started to create more products like that.
Bring me back to like the beginning though, because there's so many untold stories of like, how did you like start a business? Like, you know what I mean? I think people feel really overwhelmed with that. So like walk me through some of those steps.
So I think the first thing that people need to realize is that when you are thinking of starting a business, the first thing that people can do wrong is that they get in their own way. So they can think, oh, I bet someone else is already working on this. You know, like who's to say my product will do well, right? But fact of the matter is, if you see a problem and it's not been solved, it means that no one's done it well enough. Yeah. And so why not you? Yeah. You know, and so when it came to Aray, I just found that this like wellness in general was a very confusing industry, supplements, because I was a oh my gosh. Yeah. And so I had been a hyper consumer of skincare. And so I was like, I can go to a Sephora and find things for my dark circles or my hyperpigmentation, whatever skin issue I have so easily. Yeah. Whereas for supplements, I'd have to do all this research, you know, and it was like, everything was ugly. There was so many questions like, do I use this or that? Like, okay, I have this problem. Like, somebody help me, you know? And so we wanted to bring that same ease and like excitement around products with Aray. And you know, one day I was so frustrated and I was sitting on the couch and I told Nish, I was like, why hasn't this been done? Like, I wish I could create this brand and it would be targeted and so easy and so chic. And he's like, Sif, like, why don't we do it? Wow. And so that was really the beginning.
And when was that?
We had the idea in 2018. We started to work on it. 2019, launched 2020.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you need to raise capital in order to start Aray, or how did that work for you guys?
No. So initially we actually put our wedding money into the business. So, you know, Nish, who's my husband, is my co-founder. Wow. And so instead of having a wedding, we actually put all our money into...
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. So we put all our money into Aray because we really wanted to prove the concept and just know that this was something that people wanted. We had so much conviction, but we wanted to do that before we went and even thought about raising capital. Yeah. And honestly speaking, the advice I'd give to entrepreneurs is if you have the ability to do that and you can take a bet on yourself, I would rather you do that than go and raise outside capital, because if you go out to, you know, larger, like let's say venture capitalists, and you want to raise money and you don't even have a company, you just have a concept, they'll just take a larger chunk of your company. Yeah. So it's a lot smarter if you can prove it out. You go in there with a lot more power.
Kind of going back a little bit, can you walk us through maybe like one of your biggest hurdles that you endeavored through like the start of and launch of your company?
Yeah. Oh my God. There are so many that come to mind, but we launched our company during COVID. Okay. So we launched it in March and then like the next week, everything shut down.
Oh my God.
And it was such uncertainty. Yeah. No one knew what was happening. Yeah. And I still have these like very early memories of Aray where, you know, it was just back then, like Nish and I packaging everything up in our apartment, and then we'd take it to the post office and they were like, well, we don't know if any of this is going out. Right. I'm like, and I remember the guy like at the post office being like, well, you should just take it home. And I was like, I'm leaving this here and somebody is getting it out the door, because I'm not telling our customers that this is not getting to them when I'm a brand new company, you know? So there was that. thank God, like everything did go out.
Yeah.
It was just like delays.
Yeah.
One time, like again, early days, because of COVID, we had run out of stock so quickly because the company took off. And then the shipment of product that was supposed to come to our house for us to pack up, UPS lost it. And it was like 1,000 units of product.
Oh.
And I mean, we didn't have like all this money, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like,
No.
like every unit counted, thank God everything was found again. But, in the meanwhile, we're getting customers emailing us being like, our order is delayed, like so angry, and Nish and I back then would literally just get on the phone with customers or like send a really nice email. And then they'd realize that it was like,
you're the founders
just the two of us. And I think people don't realize that there's human beings who are...
I mean, honestly, in the early days, I was customer support. And sometimes I still dive into our customer support emails and I'll respond saying like, hey, this is Megan. And I think people don't realize there are humans like behind.
They think it's a robot or something like, and when like we put like a name to like the customer support ticket or like, I'm like, oh, I'm so-and-so, or like, obviously I'm the founder. Yeah. People are like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like I was just having a really bad day. And I was like, I totally understand. Like, obviously you go above and beyond, but these were like some of the earlier things that happened and it was really stressful.
It's also hard too when it's like the first encounter with your brand. You want it to be a good experience because you want them to be repeat customers. And there's like this whole life cycle, right? That you want it to keep up. That's really tough.
Yeah. But like, we would always try to go above and beyond. So for example, if someone's order was delayed, like we'd send extra product or we'd send a really nice handwritten note. Like we'd always... whatever was in our power, we did to make sure the customer was happy. But that being said, like no matter what, when you launch a company, there's so many uncertainties, especially when you're a first-time founder. But add in a whole global pandemic on top of it, you know, it's a whole thing.
Yeah. Speaking of just being a new brand, do you have any tips for anyone listening, like how you got the word out about your brand? Because I think people feel like very overwhelmed, kind of going back to that point of like, there are 100 coffee shops. Why would I open 101?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a couple of things. Number one is whichever customer does purchase your product, truly treat them like an influencer, you know? So if you have a physical product, then maybe write a handwritten note, just let them know your gratitude. Make sure the package is like packaged really nicely as though it were going to a celebrity, like from the beginning, we were like, treat our customers like influencers. And so we used to do, in every single order, we'd put a Polaroid of Nish and I, and it was like, welcome to the Aray fam, and like we could do that back then. First it was handwritten notes and then it was that. And people just started to talk about it organically. Yeah. On top of that, I was gifting to literally anyone who would accept it. And it was nutritionists, it was doctors, it was fitness influencers, it was micro-influencers. Like I didn't care. Like whoever would accept the product and was agreeable to try it, I would do that. And so whatever industry you're in, and I remember you saying the same thing when you started Sculpt Society, like you were saying that on your podcast, that you would just like message, like DM girls being like, hi, like, do you want to come work out?
I still do it. I'm like, hey, you don't know me, but
and like, that's kind of what you have to do, like you just have to put yourself out there.
And did you guys allocate a certain amount of marketing spend for seeding at all?
Honestly, no, it was just like
what you had.
Yeah. And, like whatever we could do. Like I was just super aggressive. Like I remember I had this super gnarly Excel sheet and it was like, I'd reach out to like 100 people a day. Wow. Just on my own. And it was like whoever would accept, I would send the product over. And I was so grateful.
Don't you also think like the follow-up is important? I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I did it, but they never responded. I'm like, girlfriend, you got to like follow up, baby. Yeah. I mean, don't follow up 1,000 times, but like 2 or 3 more times, like you got to follow up.
Yeah, honestly, I think like you kind of have to leave your ego at the door a little bit, like, and just know. Also, the thing is that I remember reaching out to people at the beginning of the business and I never heard back. And then like, I don't know, 6-8 months later, they'd come back being like,
my friend told me.
Yeah, my friend told me, or like, I'm so sorry I didn't see this DM, or like whatever it was. And you have to also understand that the people you're reaching out to are probably busy. And if you are a nobody brand, not everyone's going to say yes to you. And you don't have to feel bad about that. It's honestly nothing personal. You just keep at it,
Yeah. And also I think with seeding too, like going, which is hard, I think as a new brand too, but going in with like zero expectations of like receiving anything, you're just trying to get it out there into hands of people that enjoy it or want it.
Exactly. And I like, if you have a good product, ultimately people will start talking about it. It may seem like a slower start, but if you are relentless and really just putting yourself out there, it will take hold. But like, I think having grace is also really important.
Yes. Switching gears a little bit, you work with your husband. Can you which obviously I can relate to, but how did you meet your husband and how long have you been together?
So we met in college.
Okay.
So we were living in the same dorm, and I met him through one of my friends, and we became really good friends. This was in my third year of college. And then by the end of our third year of college, we started dating.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, we are very, very different because he's like an engineer, and then he went into software development and product management, and I have been a creative through and through my whole life. So I feel like, number one, we have so much fun together because we bring like two different perspectives to the table always, like even in our personal lives.
Yeah.
And then in the business, I remember when I was thinking of Aray, I was like, it has to be Nish who I start this with, because he is like the perfect co-founder. Like, if I could write down every quality I wanted in a co-founder, it would be everything that Nish has. He's like so smart in the ways that I'm not. Yeah. And we really complement each other. And, you know, like, I'm sure you can relate to this because you work with Morgan as well, but you know that you can trust each other inherently. You know, like, you're both on the same team.
Yeah. I mean, your livelihood and your life is like steering this company as you go through different stages. And I think, question back to you, when you met Nish, were you like, I know I want to work with you, or is that something that just evolved for you?
That evolved for sure, because we met when we were like 20. Okay. And so back then it was like we were on two different paths. Like, he was an engineer, and so he was working initially in oil and gas, and then he went into software development and product management. So two completely different things. I started my career in publishing. So I worked at Elle, and then, you know, was working on my blog. And essentially what kind of pointed to that direction of us being like really good together in terms of like a work relationship was I would get invited on press trips, and I'd take Nish with me. And it was so fun to work with him, you know, and like,
he's so personable too. Like, he could talk to anyone.
Exactly. like
you just can like
big golden retriever energy, you know,
but that's great, you know?
I'm really lucky. And so I'd take him on these trips, and like, not only would he be like so willing to help out, but like, you know, he'd try to help me in terms of like the optimization of my website, or like if he'd see something, he'd be like, Siff, have you tried this? And I was like, this is so nice. Like, he cares so much, and he always brings like a different perspective to the table. And so I think like early on, like, I would say like when I was, I don't know, like a couple of years into blogging, I was like, we make a really good team in some capacity. I don't know in what, but we just knew that we'd be a good team.
And when you guys launched Aray, did you both have to leave your positions, or were you guys side hustling at the same time?
So we were both side hustling until I stopped taking on really like any branded partnerships. I would say we started March. By September, October, I was like, I can't keep up with this anymore. And Nish was in November. But I remember because he worked in like a crazy, like very demanding job, and he was pretty high up. Yeah. So he would be up till like 5, 6 a.m. sometimes working, and then like waking up again at like, you know, 9 and doing it all over again. Like, it was insane. And so when it came to that crossroads, it was really just like, okay, if you don't leave your job now, and like we had a milestone in mind, so we hit it and he left, but we were both very conscious that, like, you know, I think you get to a certain point where you're like, okay, I have to go all in, or it's like diminishing returns, you know? Yes.
And isn't it interesting when you are then able to get to that point? I love that you had a marker in financially to meet, but like, just how everything else sort of opens up as then you like fully go into it.
Yeah. And I really think that your business gives to you what you give to it, you know? And so if you are able to give it your life and soul, like, I feel like that's what you'll get back, just because it's a product of the work that you're doing, you know?
Can you give us just some general, like, what are some of like the best business tips or advice you have been given over the years? I feel like you've talked to a lot of good people.
Okay. So I would say one of my favorite pieces of advice that I got actually before we launched Aray was from the founder of Rodial. She's like a beauty brand founder. Okay. And this, like, back when I spoke to her for my podcast, it was when we had just gotten basically like the bottles, like our like labeled bottles, boxes, everything. And we'd worked really hard on the branding, and it came back and there was a sheen on the label. It was a disaster. Okay. The color was off. No. And I was like, how did this happen? And it was just the printer had like done something wrong. And so I remember interviewing her for my podcast, and I was like, what do I do? Like, do I just start all over? And she's like, are you crazy? Like, you sell these. I mean, she's like, the formula is perfect. do you know how many like mistakes we've had with our packaging? If you wait, it's gonna hold you back and you're gonna delay your launch. And I was like, okay, I guess you're right. And we went to market, and she doesn't know this because, you know, I've not spoken to her since then, but she's someone I so appreciate that piece of advice, because it was that very like launch fast and iterate concept, which so many entrepreneurs talk about, including myself. But that was like that in action, because it was not perfect. You know, we could have gone and like ripped all the labels apart. It would have probably set us back another 3 months. Instead, we went to market, and honestly speaking, nobody really noticed that.
Sure, I know.
Was,
like,
you know what I mean?
The
like,
small details. Like, it is nice when it comes together in the vision that you want, but like, you got to just iterate, you know, like move forward and iterate. Yeah.
So I feel like that's like a really important one. And I know that when you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're like a perfectionist, right? And I think like if you've waited for perfect, you've probably waited too long. Like let's just get out the door.
Yeah.
You know,
you have to. What about some like worst advice? Because I'm sure talking to investors about your brand.
I think that you must follow your gut, I think. And sometimes like maybe investors or whoever it is, they can give you advice telling you to follow a trend. And I don't know, unless you think that that is right for you, don't just do it because it's where the money is, you know, because I think as a founder, you know better than anyone. And I just think that you have to carry on. Also, make sure if you are taking outside capital to have investors who you really trust, because it's like caretakers of your child. And I have to say, like, you know, we did end up raising capital a 1.5 years into our business, and I love our investors. They're very supportive. They like bring a different perspective to the table without ever overstepping their limits. And I think like that sort of partnership is really powerful.
Yeah. But I love what you said. Like, your investors are taking care of your child.
Yeah. But it's your child.
Yeah.
You know, so make sure that they're not overstepping.
Yeah. I feel like I have learned so much about business. What is something like you wish you had known before starting your own business?
I think the biggest thing is that you have to have a certain degree of stoicism when you're starting your business. Okay. And I think that when you are a new entrepreneur, you tend to be like your idea of like who you are and your kind of like, I guess, confidence can be linked to how your business is doing. And I think that that needs to be thrown out the window, because you and your business are not one. You know, like your business is a part of your identity, but it's not the whole thing. And so I think also a business is a business. Like it's so volatile. And so if you link your entire emotional well-being to the well-being of your business, it's going to be tough. Like you're going to be thrown for a lot of like highs and lows. So for me, yes, like, of course, like I strive for excellence. Of course, when something goes wrong, like You're in there, like in the trenches, like trying to solve it as quickly as possible. But I will say, having an attitude of stoicism is really helpful, because I don't know, it just puts like a barrier between, I don't know, what you allow in to affect your inner peace. So, that stoicism piece, I think, has been so important for me. And I will say, like, it was a lesson that I've learned from my dad, because my dad is an entrepreneur as well. And he's done very well. And I remember early days of Array, like I'd call him up and I'd be crying about like, I don't know, like I disappointed a customer. And he's like, what are you doing? He's like, you know, like, you signed up for a life of volatility and you can't let yourself be so emotionally like thrown around. And he's like, when you're the leader, you have to stay like really just clear-headed and forward thinking, and just like nothing else. It shouldn't impact you emotionally, because then you're not making the right decisions. So I think finding things that allow you to be tempered emotionally, and also that ground you, because if you, for example, don't find things that protect your mental health, it's so all consuming.
It really is.
You know, so you need whatever
different
it is.
outlets, maybe.
Exactly. Like working out, honestly, so important for my mental health. Oh my gosh.
No, I can relate to that so much. And I think that's something I'm definitely not quite there yet. I still find myself, you know, daily sort of on that mini roller coaster. And I would love to get to a point where I'm a little bit more, not detached, but able to just not be so emotionally.
That's the thing. Like, I don't think detachment is the right word. I think it's just boundaries.
Boundaries. Great. Yes. Yeah. Switching gears a little bit, can you walk us through your journey with working out? You said that working out has been really important for you as a founder. Like, how has that journey evolved?
So I I think the most important thing is finding a workout that works for you and that lights you up. So I remember when I was in college, it was like the only workout there was run.
Yeah.
And I hated running.
Oh,
and I would just go to the gym begrudgingly and get on that stupid treadmill and or the elliptical.
Oh, the elliptical, the hours wasted on an elliptical.
Oh my God. And so, you know, over time, obviously, like that changed. It was initially like I got introduced to Pilates and then like, you know, just at home workouts that I could do on my own. And then later on it was weightlifting. So I found things that would work for me. And I realized that the mental health benefit of it, like, yes, of course it kept me healthy. And like, you know, the longevity benefits are undeniable. But at the same time, it just allowed me to move through my day with more grace. And I don't know, it made me a better version of myself. And I realized that the days that I didn't work out, or if I went days without working out, I would get more irritated easily. I don't know, I was just more impatient. I'd feel like, I don't even like restless, you know? And so now, no matter what, like, it doesn't matter how busy I am, I still make time to work out. Like movement is really, really, really important.
Yeah. I wish some of the narrative could be shifted in the fitness industry of like, if people struggle to work out because of the aesthetic, like that's not enough of a motivation, how about the mental health benefits?
Yes.
Like, you're going to be less anxious. You're going to be less stressed. You're going to feel better in a meeting, in that Zoom call, in that presentation. You're going to be better at your job. If you went into your workout maybe with that intention, it might be easier to show up.
Oh, absolutely. Because you realize that it makes you a better leader. And I think that, you know, and you know what, forget if someone is an entrepreneur or not, right? Like even if you have whatever job you have, if someone tells you you can be better at your job by putting 30 to 45, 15 minutes into something. 15
minutes are quickie full body.
Yeah. 15 minutes is all you need to be better at your work.
Yes.
Who wouldn't say yes?
Literally.
Right? And it's like, that's all you really need. You know, it's consistency and making time for it. And people make it so complicated. And I remember I used to as well, right? And I remember when you came on my podcast, this is like something I keep repeating to people. It's like, it doesn't matter how long you're doing it for, right? Like it can be 10 minutes, it can be 15, just do it.
Commit to less so that you can show up more.
Exactly. Like the
really, TSS fan was like, oh my God, if she says that one more time.
No, but it's so like, it's really, really good advice because people are like all or nothing. I'm going to go to the gym 6 days a week for 1 hour. And if I don't, then I'm not going to do anything. Why?
I know.
Who made those rules?
Take me back to like younger Sif. Like, what would you tell her? What is a piece of advice you would say?
Well, I would probably tell her to follow her gut and not really worry about other people's perception of her. Because when I was in college, funny story, I actually created a Tumblr account. Okay, and this was back when I was in college, and I just started like my own version of a blog before it was really a thing. But I was like, I can't be doing this really because people will think I'm psychotic, you know? And had I just followed my gut and done it, I think that, you know, I would have just had like more, like my career maybe would have moved quicker. Of course, I don't regret anything, but it's just an example because it was a trend that happened. You know what I mean? And so I think a lot of us put pressure on ourselves being like, oh, like I want to do this, but what will people think, you know? And I think you just have to stop.
Also just realizing that like people are not thinking about you the way that you think people are, spending the time thinking about you the way you think people are.
And also I think that if people are saying mean things behind your back, you have to realize that those people's opinions actually are the ones that you don't care about or you shouldn't. Like, do you think Oprah is out there like, you know, saying mean
on Reddit?
Things?
Like reading her Reddit? No, absolutely not.
Oprah is not doing that, you know? And like, you want the opinion of like Oprah's or like not Oprah, but like, you know what I mean? Like people who are real winners in life and real winners in life aren't there like talking smack about someone who's trying to do good in their lives. Like, it's just not, it's just not a thing.
Yeah. And then tell me what is next for Aray? Like, what are you most excited about in the coming months, years?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I mean,
I know you probably have a lot going on.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, every product that we launch is something that's so exciting to me because, you know, we take so long with product formulation and we like,
you just launched a product.
Yes.
Which is?
Constipation.
And
it's harsh laxative free. So it's just something you take at night and you just wake up and you're easily able to go to the bathroom. It essentially just helps you regulate your own digestive system versus like something that's harsh and forces you to, like, we don't want a bridesmaid situation, you know, like the movie. Oh my God, like it's so horrific. That's what I do not want. Okay. So that's a product that we're really proud of. We have a few more coming out this year, which, you know, we've worked really, really hard on. So, you know, I think that's always really exciting. I think it's also really exciting for me as a leader and a marketer as well to constantly come up with interesting ways to talk about products that have historically been not so sexy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I
love that you just called your product constipation, like very simply, right? This is what we're doing, but you're putting it in a beautiful package.
Exactly.
Like the whole, I mean, you need to go look at Array's Instagram, but it's so beautifully presented.
Yeah. And we wanted to make it really cheeky. Like, you know, we did these like PR mailers, which we also sent to our community, and it was like, let's talk shit, you know? And it was just like really like funny and, you know, just something that people wouldn't be ashamed of talking about. Instead, they'd like maybe have like a moment where they're like, okay, that's like cute, you know, and hopefully break some of the stigma around this topic. And so for me, like what's really exciting is constantly being able to do that. Like, I mean, last year we launched heartburn and it was the same thing, you know, like who wants to talk about heartburn, right? But we just did something really fun around it. And so then people started to talk about our heartburn capsules. So it's just really gratifying to know that you're kind of changing the narrative around certain topics.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Siff.
Thank you so much for having me.
This was such a fun Sculpt and Spill. Tell people where they can find you, listen to you.
So you can find me across all social media platforms at Siffat Haider. You can find my podcast, the Dream Bigger Podcast, anywhere where podcasts are found. And Aray can be found at aray.com or aray.co on social.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Cheers.